Welcome to the Deep Dive. Our mission, as always, is to take these complex frameworks, stacks of research and manuscripts, and really distill them down into something you can use.
Exactly.
And today we are doing a deep dive into a concept that's less about abstract doctrine and more about, well, practical capacity building.
Have you ever been given a really powerful, just undeniable promise from God? A prophetic word, maybe, about a huge breakthrough, a major shift in your life, only to, watch the calendar turn for months, maybe even years, and you just feel stuck. That tension, that space between the promise and the proof can feel like you're just wandering in a spiritual wilderness.
It's the ultimate tension point, and it often feels less like patience and more like you're just stuck. Or worse, you get intensely frustrated.
Right. So today, for our deep dive, we're jumping into a framework that completely reframes that waiting period. It's about turning passive hope into an active blueprint for getting ready.
We're pulling these ideas from a book called Digging Ditches, The Principle of Preparing for Your Prophetic Promise by Justin Endoro.
It's a fantastic read. And our focus today is really on shifting a mindset, moving away from, just passively expecting something good to happen.
Just waiting for it to drop out of the sky.
Right? And moving towards a functional, visible kind of preparation. The whole thesis is this: a great future, a destiny, whatever you want to call it, it requires capacity. You need active faith to build that capacity, the ditches, to actually contain and sustain it.
Okay, digging ditches. Let's unpack that metaphor right away. The author grounds this whole idea in a pretty dramatic biblical crisis. It's from 2 Kings chapter 3.
It is.
And it's really a story about a massive strategic failure.
It's a huge one. So picture this. We're in the wilderness of Edom. You have 3 powerful allied armies. That's Israel, Judah, and Edom. And they're completely stranded.
They've been marching for 7 days.
7 days. Their alliances were strong. Their military plan was, theoretically sound, but they ran out of water. Their entire campaign, all this triumphant hope, is suddenly just derailed.
And not by a superior enemy.
No, that's the key. It was derailed by a basic, overlooked logistical failure: dehydration in the desert.
That's such a powerful analogy for life, isn't it? It's like a multi-million-dollar business collapsing because someone just forgot to file one simple piece of paperwork.
That's it exactly. A massive vision, lost because of a tiny, preventable lack of preparation.
And the location itself, the Valley of Edom, is significant here.
Oh, hugely significant. The author calls it the spiritual valley of delayed promises. And that's largely because of its tie to Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites.
Right, Esau's the one who traded his birthright, his entire prophetic inheritance, for a bowl of stew.
So the valley itself represents that spirit of compromise, where we choose what's easy right now over the hard work our long-term destiny actually requires.
And the kings made a critical error before they even got there. The book highlights how water often symbolizes divine guidance, the word of God.
Yes, they had their weapons ready, their alliances were set, but they marched out without seeking that guidance first. So what looked like a logistical blunder was actually, at its root, a spiritual crisis.
This is a life or death crisis.
Oh, a crisis.
And the prophet Elisha shows up and gives them this command that makes no sense. He says, make this valley full of ditches.
Wait, hold on. They're dying of thirst, and their first job is manual labor, digging holes in the dirt.
Exactly. It's totally illogical. And the promise that came with it was even wilder. He said, you shall not see wind, nor shall you see rain, yet that valley shall be filled with water. The message is clear. You do the preparation, even when it looks pointless, and the miracle will come in a way you don't expect.
The author makes his point so clearly. The obedience to dig was the visible evidence of their faith in an invisible promise.
So the ditches weren't for them to understand.
Not at all. They were, and I'm quoting here, prophetically required for God to fill. They had to take that physical action to show they believed the fulfillment was coming, even when they couldn't see how.
That history really sets the stage perfectly. So let's bring that pressure into today. Where does the book say most of us get stuck?
It really hits hard on this tension between what it calls functional faith and just passive waiting.
Okay.
And it points out a kind of hypocrisy. It says we prepare endlessly for our worldly goals. We'll craft the perfect resume. We set meticulous budgets. We plan our vacations down to the absolute minute.
Sure, we forecast revenue. We do all of that.
All of it. But when it comes to something deep, a spiritual calling or a life-altering destiny, we often just sit back and say, well, if God wants it to happen, he'll make it happen.
Justin argues that if you truly believe the rain is coming, then not digging the ditch is actually a statement of unbelief.
It is. It's an act of unbelief, and that ties right into this capacity principle.
Explain that.
Well, think of faith not just as a feeling, but as the substance and evidence of things you hope for.
Yeah.
It's the real foundation. So if your destiny is to build, say, a huge skyscraper, you have to dig a much, much deeper foundation than you would for a little shack.
The excavation comes before the elevation.
The excavation must precede the elevation.
Okay, but let me challenge this a bit. Because this framework puts a huge emphasis on human effort, does this imply that God's intervention is conditional on us getting everything perfectly right? Isn't that a lot of pressure?
That's a really important distinction to make, and the author is very clear. Digging the ditch is not earning the water. Grace provides the water. It's stewardship, not a transaction.
So the digging wasn't required to earn the water. It was required to create the capacity to contain it.
Capacity. That's the key concept here.
Think about it this way. God could send the entire ocean, but if you only have a teaspoon,
The rest is wasted.
exactly. The blessing would have just flooded the cracked earth. It would have evaporated, spilled away, maybe leaving them a tiny bit better off, but unable to sustain themselves. Digging the ditches was that visible, physical act of faith that basically said, I believe the promise so much that I will dedicate my last bit of strength to build a reservoir for what's coming.
That is so powerful.
Ah.
Okay, so that sets the stage perfectly for this core idea, the necessity of digging.
Yeah, this is the pivot. The book defines digging ditches as a bold, proactive act of faith. It's visible obedience before you see any visible evidence. Faith without that kind of work is just wishful thinking.
So preparation really is the clearest sign of true belief. If you really think it's coming, you start digging. But how? I mean, we're not literally digging in the dirt.
Right. And that's where the book provides a fantastic structure. And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men.
Okay, so that verse becomes a blueprint.
For 4 distinct ditches you need to dig. 4 areas of growth.
Let's break those down. What's the first one?
The first dish is intellectual. The book calls it wisdom. This is about sharpening your mind, gaining strategic understanding, and aligning your reasoning with your mission.
So it's practical knowledge.
It's practical knowledge, it's discernment, it's actively renewing your mindset. The point the author makes is that a spiritual calling doesn't cancel the need for competence.
Right. If you feel called to start a business, you still need to learn how to read a balance sheet. The vision doesn't replace the skill.
It completes it, it gives it purpose. But you have to do the work. You have to close that skills gap before the door opens. That's digging the ditch of wisdom.
Okay, so that's ditch number 1. What's the second?
The second is physical or stature. This moves from the mind to the tangible world. It's about stewarding your body, your time, your energy, your finances, all your practical resources.
They also calls the body the altar of assignment, which is such a powerful phrase.
Isn't it? It's not just a vehicle. It's the very platform for your mission. This is where diligence comes in, which the author calls the shovel of destiny.
I like that. So if you're not disciplined with your money, a financial breakthrough is just going to slip through your fingers.
Exactly. Or if your time management is a disaster, a huge opportunity will just overwhelm and crush you.
So what does digging this ditch look like?
It's intentional rest, so you have endurance. It's a calendar that actually reflects your true priorities. And it's building systems of stewardship, like Joseph in the Bible. He didn't just get a promise. He built the entire infrastructure to manage the grain during the famine. He had the ditches ready.
Okay, wisdom, stature. What's the third ditch?
The third is spiritual. The book frames it as favor with God. This is your inner world, your private depth, your communion, your operating system.
This is the foundation for everything else.
It has to be. The book argues that this deep mission alignment, this divine favor, has to come before any public recognition. This isn't about religious performance. It's about deep character formation.
And the disciplines here are about going deep, right? Meditation, focus, what the author calls consecration. Basically, keeping the inner altar clean.
Yes, because a shallow private life cannot sustain a heavy public calling. It's just not possible. Your influence flows from that hidden discipline depth.
That makes perfect sense. And the fourth and final ditch.
The fourth is relational, or favor with men. This is the recognition that destiny almost never happens in a vacuum. Vision moves forward through partnerships, through covenant relationships.
So this is about cultivating the right connections.
It's about cultivating them as channels. Think about mentors, partners, key allies. This ditch is dug by practicing honor, humility, speaking truth, but also by setting healthy boundaries.
Boundaries are interesting. You'd think that's about keeping people out.
But it's not. Good boundaries don't block connection. They protect the flow of trust and respect within it. The book also makes a huge point about clearing out debris.
What kind of debris?
Unforgiveness, bitterness, old conflicts, that stuff acts like silt in a pipe. It clogs the relational ditch, so when the water finally comes, it can't get through.
Wow. So intellectual, physical, spiritual, and relational. That is a comprehensive framework.
Yeah.
But here's the hard part. What of that pressure? You're out there, you're digging all 4 of these ditches, you're sweating, and they're still empty. For months, maybe for years.
That is the breaking point.
Yeah, the doubt must be overwhelming.
It is. Weariness is human. Everyone gets tired. But here's the insight. The delay doesn't mean your obedience was wrong. It actually validates the quality of your faith.
So when faith meets fatigue,
Yeah.
you have to keep going.
You have to dig one more ditch. The ditch of patience.
How do you do that practically?
A few ways. First, journal the journey. It helps you see progress you otherwise would have missed. Second, go back to the original promise, the thing that set your heart on fire in the first place. And third, lean on your community. Isolation just makes the desert seem endless.
And what about mistakes? Nobody digs perfectly. You're going to mess up.
Oh, absolutely. And we have to talk about the dirt of mistakes. Preparation is a practice, not a perfect performance. Think of Abraham trying to rush God's promise and creating a huge mess.
Or Peter denying his whole mission.
Exactly. And that's where grace comes in. Grace steps into the dirt of our mistakes and can turn a ditch of regret into a well of redemption. The key is to repent, which really just means to learn the lesson and then pick up the shovel and keep digging. Failure isn't final.
The author argues that the risk of doing nothing, the risk of disobedience, is often so much greater than the risk of stepping out in faith when the world can't validate it yet.
That's the doubt in the desert moment. You've dug the ditches, the wind is blowing harder, you're tired. The tension is almost unbearable.
And the key word here is patience, but not passive waiting. It's active endurance. It's about letting patience do its perfect work, not hiding your weariness from God, but leaning into that tension.
And this leads to what the book calls the night before the breakthrough.
So the call to action here is incredibly clear. Stop passively waiting and start actively preparing. Because unprepared people can't steward fulfillment.
That's the bottom line. And the author shares this incredible personal story. He was trying to get massive funding for a school, made a huge declaration of faith, but with 2 weeks to go, he had nothing. Zero.
The ultimate test. The silence right before the miracle or the failure.
And he's freaking out, right? Panicking. And then he feels this quiet instruction to do one last insane thing.
What was it?
Go to sleep.
Go to sleep.
Go to sleep. And that's the provocative thought we have to leave you with. Aggressive, intentional preparation is the clearest expression of faith, yes. But sometimes the final, greatest proof of faith is to stop your own striving and just rest, trusting that destiny works the night shift.
It's trusting that the outcome now belongs to God because you've done everything you were asked to do. And that whole journey, the work, the waiting, the doubt, it all leads to this one incredible moment.
It does. The end of the story says it all. Now it happened in the morning that suddenly water came by way of Edom and the land was filled with water. Suddenly, every ditch you dig in faith, every moment of work in the dark, it leads to your own now it happened moment. And when it comes, fulfillment will be sudden, it will be certain, and you'll finally have the capacity to hold it all.
You do the digging.
God handles the filling. He filled the ditches in the dark while they slept.
It wasn't a gradual trickle, it was an abrupt, overwhelming flood. The drought broke because the capacity was finally there to receive it all without any waste.
So what does this all boil down to for us today?
Well, the consequence of just waiting passively is pretty profound. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. It leads to cynicism, disillusionment. You lose all your momentum. You simply cannot credibly claim to be waiting for something you are not actively preparing for.
So intentional preparation becomes the most compelling, the most tangible expression of your faith.
It really does. The ditches are for our protection as much as for our prosperity.
Well, thank you for joining us on today's deep dive. It's been a privilege exploring Pastor Justin's new book, Digging Ditches, and unpacking the practical wisdom behind preparing for your prophetic promise. We hope today's conversation sparked fresh insight and a deeper understanding of what intentional preparation can make possible in your life. If you'd like to get your own copy of this powerful and transformative book, simply visit topintegrity.co.za and place your order. You can also reach us directly on WhatsApp at +27 7 997 34514. We'd love to connect with you, answer your questions, and help you begin your own ditch digging journey. Thanks again for listening. If you have not yet subscribed, please do so and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed the podcast. Until next time, stay expectant, stay prepared, and keep digging.